What's going on, guys, and welcome to a very delayed edition of WrestleRant here today, where every single week I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the Global Wrestling Network. Today we're talking WCW, NWA, The Great American Bash, 1988. So again, I apologize for the delay of the episode this week. It was supposed to go up on Tuesday as usual. That's usually when the WrestleRant videos go up, but this past week or two has been super crazy. So I'm hoping to get back on track by like today/tomorrow. And next week I will be talking about an ECW pay-per-view here on the show. But like I said, today we're talking NWA Great American Bash 1988. And another solid show. The top matches delivered. There were only 5 matches in a 2.5 hour period, but they were all, good to very good, making it a pretty solid show overall. The opening match for the NWA World Tag Team titles saw Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard wrestle Sting and Nikita Koloff to a 20-minute time limit draw, which was not too out of the ordinary for these old school pay-per-views, so it's not a rare finish for a match to end in a time limit draw, protecting both teams in the process. But this was a great opening match. Sting got the hot tag towards the end, and the crowd just went fucking nuts. So it was weird to see Sting go from like being in the top matches on the show to then being in like the opening match on the show. But still, I thought he played his role here very well. The crowd was into him. They were very excited to see him hopefully win the NWA World Tag Team titles alongside Nikita Koloff, who was a very random partner for Sting, I thought. I mean, nothing wrong with Nikita Koloff, of course, but I thought he was a very odd choice for a partner for Sting. But nonetheless, this really was the Sting showcase here. The crowd going nuts for him. I love the finish where he had either Blanchard or Anderson. I forgot who of the two. He had one of them in the Scorpion Deathlock, and he was about to force them to tap out before the bell rang. And you thought that he had forced them to tap out, thus winning the tag team titles. But in reality, the time limit, the time expired. So the match ended in a draw instead. So I thought it was a very well executed finish and made people in the audience think. They went nuts when the bell rang because they thought that either Blanchard or Anderson had tapped out, but that wasn't the case. Rather, the time limit expired, and still the NWA World Tag Team Champions were Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. So again, very good match here, great atmosphere, very good action, within what I thought was a very smart, wise finish. We got some more non-finishes on this show, which was kind of bullshit, a lot of like screwy finishes. But as far as this one goes, I thought it was really well done. For the NWA United States Tag Team titles, we had the Midnight Express beating the Fantastics for the belts in a match that went about 15 minutes. It was all right. They had matches in the past that were a lot better than this one. So alone, it's an okay match. But when you compare it to past matches these two teams had, it wasn't really as good. It didn't really kind of live up to the hype, so to speak. The stipulation here that the manager for the Midnight Express, Jim Cornette, could not interfere. He was locked up in a cage around ringside, and he had what's it called? When they put him in a straitjacket. That was the word I was looking for. So they spent like 20 minutes getting him in the cage, and you can kind of skip through that. But for the 20 minutes they spent getting him in the cage, he like refuses. He's very, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for here. I'm kind of at a loss for words today, if you couldn't tell. It's early on a Friday morning. Don't give me shit for it. But he's like, no, I don't want to get in the cage, blah, blah, blah. Being very reluctant to get in there. So it was entertaining. Jim Cornette, ever the entertaining heel. I thought that was awesome. But again, the match itself was, it was all right. And also part of that stipulation, in addition to Cornette being in the cage and being wrapped up in the straitjacket, if the Midnight Express lost, he would have been lashed 10 times. Which would obviously never happen today. But even though the Midnight Express won, he was taken out of the cage and beaten up by the Fantastics and lashed anyway. So, bunch of sore losers they are. But again, this was, a decent match. With a good heel finish, Bobby Eaton takes the chain from, I think his tag team partner, hits Bobby Fulton with it while the referee is down, gets the 1, 2, 3, new NWA United States Tag Team Champions. But I thought it was a good match. Not as good as it could have been, but it was a good match. And the crowd was happy with the aftermath, with Cornette being attacked, despite the finish. And a Tower of Doom match. So this was not quite as dumb as the scaffolding match. I forgot what it was called, but from the past few Starrcade show. That was fucking stupid. This was pretty dumb too. This was also pretty dumb, but not nearly as dumb. It was something of a spectacle. And really, the saving grace of this match was that they had this great story to be told here between Jimmy Garvin, Kevin Sullivan, and Jimmy Garvin's wife, Precious, who, okay, well, before I even get to that point, so a Tower of Doom match had like 3 cages, not side by side, not like, what is it, War Games, not like War Games. The cages were stacked on top of each other, with each cage being smaller than the one on the bottom of it. So you had everyone starting at the top, and they have to work their way down. And once every member of one team, and there were 5 people on each team, or 6 people? I think 6 people. Yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it might have been 5. I don't remember. Anyway, it was 5. I'm sorry. It was 5 people to a team. Once all 5 members of each team escape the cage, that's when their team wins. So each team consisted of, the first team was, the Road Warriors, Jimmy Garvin, Ron Garvin, and Steve Williams, Dr. Death. And the other team consisted of Al Perez, Ivan Koloff, Kevin Sullivan, Mike Rotunda, and the Russian Assassin. This went a while, about 20 minutes. And again, the action itself is more of a spectacle than it really is an instant 5-star mat classic. But for what it is, it's very enjoyable. The crowd was into it. They kind of told that core story there, like I said, with Garvin, Sullivan, and the woman Precious, who held the key to the padlock to the lock on the outside of the first cage. So they kind of had to tell a story there, and she was hypnotized by Kevin Sullivan, apparently was the story being told. So kind of some old school stuff, a little bit silly, obviously, but it was a great story to be told. The crowd was into it. Like I said, more of a spectacle really than anything, and as a result, it was a very entertaining match, and I thought, I liked this match. I thought it was a way better match than it had any right to be on paper, because I'm looking at these 3 cages, and I'm like, what a clusterfuck. This looks like a huge, giant mess. But no, I thought they kind of worked their way around the stipulation very well, and delivered a very entertaining Tower of Doom match, which I'm not sure if they ever did it again, but for what it was an entertaining match. I'm sure there was more than one. But it was the first one I've ever seen, and it was much better than I thought it would be. For the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, Barry Windham taking on Dusty Rhodes here. In a pretty good match. Not a great match. Dusty Rhodes was kind of not the Dusty Rhodes of old, and Barry Windham kind of helped carry him to a better match than it probably, a better match than just to kind of make it above average here. Dusty Rhodes was not really in prime condition. I think this was one of his final major matches in the NWA before leaving the WWE soon after. Again, it was a pretty good match. Not as good as it could have been. Really, the only thing worth noting about the match itself was the finish. Ronnie Garvin comes out, who was a babyface prior to this point. He just competed in the Tower of Doom match. He comes out to seemingly help Dusty Rhodes retain the title, but instead he turns on Dusty Rhodes, punches him right in the face. Barry Windham pins Dusty Rhodes and wins with a claw. Or it doesn't pin him, he applies the claw, his signature maneuver. They had a lot of good psychology surrounding the claw there after he had locked it in the first time. Dusty gets out of it. He reapplies the claw after Ronnie Garvin turns on Dusty Rhodes. So again, I thought it was a very, very good finish. Dusty Rhodes was not the Dusty Rhodes that we all remember from the early 80s, or, the same Dusty that we had seen on the same Starrcade shows a few years prior. But I thought it was still, a good match, not a bad match, a pretty good match, with a good finish, with Barry Windham screwing Dusty Rhodes out of the NWA United States title. And really, at the end of the day, it was more about the dissolution of the friendship between Dusty Rhodes and Ronnie Garvin than it was about Barry Windham retaining the U.S. title. But still, for what it was, that it was a pretty good match. And then we get to the main event for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Ric Flair defending against Lex Luger. And a great match. The crowd was super into this. A lot like any other Ric Flair match where Ric Flair played the cowardly heel. Lex Luger was on offense throughout. The crowd was super into him here. And they really desperately wanted to see him become the NWA World Champion. And they went a while. The match got a ton of time, almost well over 20 minutes. And the finish was like the opener, where you thought Lex Luger had the match won because he puts Ric Flair up in the torture rack. And seemingly Ric Flair submits. And seemingly Lex Luger has become the new NWA World Champion. But instead, the State Commission, Athletics Commission, whatever, they come out. They stop the match, we find out, because I think it was Lex Luger was bleeding too much after being drilled right into the pole by J.J. Dillon earlier on in the night, or earlier on in the match, rather. I'm thinking of J.J. Dillon being involved in another match, which he was. But he was also in the corner of Ric Flair here. So Lex Luger gets drilled right into the ring post, gets busted open, starts bleeding like crazy. And instead of stopping the match after the cut was, after he had initially gotten hurt and started bleeding, they wait until the very last minute, literally the very last second, to stop the match and screw Lex Luger out of the NWA World title. And in the record books, Ric Flair beat Lex Luger to retain the championship. It wasn't even as if, Ric Flair can't continue. No, it was Lex Luger who couldn't continue. They gave him the loss. And Ric Flair, not only did he retain the NWA World title, he won the match. So it wasn't even as if Lex Luger won the match by DQ. Ric Flair just barely escaping with his title intact by nefarious means, which he could not have planned out any better. And the crowd was seemingly very disappointed with the finish, and I can't blame him. Ended the evening on kind of a low point, because it kind of felt like a very screw-jobby-ish finish. And, it was the way it was executed. I understand what they were going for, but it was really a bait-and-switch title change here. It wasn't a title change at all, but a bait-and-switch finish with Ric Flair retaining the NWA World title when they probably should have put the belt on Lex Luger. But otherwise, it was a great match. It was a great main event. The finish kind of watered it down a bit. It kind of took away from my enjoyment of the outing a little bit, just with the execution of the finish. But the match itself, I thought, was really, really good. So overall, I thought it was a good show. The Tower of Doom match was a spectacle, and certainly well worth checking out if you haven't already seen it. The main event was great. The U.S. title match was good. Not great, but pretty good. The two tag team title matches were also enjoyable for different reasons. So overall, I give it a solid thumbs up. Great American Bash, 1988. I think it clocks in around 2.5 hours. So the show's not terribly long with only 5 matches. It's like a glorified takeover, but not as good. But still, it was all right. It was an all right event, and it had its moments. But if anything, if you only had time to watch one match, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it's got to be the Tower of Doom match. I would normally say the main event, but I thought the finish was kind of stupid. So the Tower of Doom match had the storytelling. It had that allure about it. It had that aura about it, making it just a special attraction that lived up or really exceeded expectations, if we're being honest here. So definitely check that out. Everything else, it's a good show. You're not really missing out on much if you don't watch the show. But if you do, you're not wasting your time. So that is the Great American Bash 1988. Thank you guys for checking out my review of the show. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share the video as well. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. As I mentioned earlier, next week right here on WrestleRant, which should be hopefully up on Tuesday, and we won't be backtracked anymore, that episode will be exploring, or be discussing, delving into, another ECW pay-per-view. What it is, I don't remember. I still have to watch it / review it for Tuesday, but it will be an ECW pay-per-view as found on the WWE Network. So, till then, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.